Dave Tech Table.
Welcome back to the Tech Table. Today we've got some great things to show you in the fall release for 2015 for Premiere Pro. We've got brand new formats like DNxHR, OpenEXR, and now H.265. All new touch controls, which I'll be showing you on this touch tablet by Vio, and I'll be doing some recording on this Atomos Assassin Ninja, which is a great way to get your recordings done on a tablet. We've got awesome new controls for HDR, sort of our new entry into HDR with Premiere Pro, and it's really cool. We've also got some other great features that I can't wait to show you, but the one I'm going to start with is a brand new one called Remix. Let's check it out. So take this piece by Scott DW. Let me just play it for you for a sec so you get an idea of what the piece is about.
How'd you do on the algebra test?
Watch it, geek.
Sorry. What did you say to me?
Oh, fight. Let's do this.
So you get an idea. It's going to be a high school dance-off, if you will. So the cool kids get up and do their dance, and then the geek kids get up and do their dance.
No, I'm...
And then the high school principal sort of steps in to stop the fight.
No! We're not doing this right this second!
So a really fun piece. And by the way, this piece has got over 20 million hits. So it probably doesn't need any promoting, but just as an example. So what they went ahead and did is they have lots of really fun scenes behind the scenes that they want to sort of attract people to the video, maybe look at the behind the scenes, or maybe just promote the video as is. So you can sort of see what's going on here. In this particular piece, what we want to do is we want to take and trim this audio down so it's the same length as the song. The issue is going to be is now you have to go in with the razor blade tool and you have to sort of figure out where to make cuts, blend the things together, and do all that. And it's an enormous amount of work. So the new remix feature is actually going to allow us to automatically change the length of the audio and have it decide where to make the cuts. And you do have a little bit of control. So let me show you how to do this. So what I've done is I've copied all of these clips and I just created a new sequence called Promo Remix. And as you can see, it's the same clips and again, the entire length of the song. So this is really simple. All you have to do is go to Edit, Edit and Audition, Sequence, and that's now going to send this dynamic link over to Adobe Audition. Okay, so I'm just going to move my playhead over here to my marker, which is the end of my sequence here, and what I'm going to do is right mouse click and go to Remix Enable. You can also get to it in the Properties panel over here where you see it now says Busy. That's now calculating and analyzing the clip. And what you're going to notice is a little tiny squiggly line up here in the corner, and now you'll see the help tool says Remix. We're going to resize this, and I'll just bring it right to the end of my marker there, and that's now applied the remix fairly fast. And you'll see this little squiggly line here. That's where it actually decided where to make a cut. Let's listen and see how it did with the lyrics. That's actually pretty good. That's a great cut. However, in the beginning of the song, that might not start where you want it to start, or you might want some more cuts, a little bit more lyrics. So if you want to make some changes to that, pretty easy to do. You can just go down in the properties down here and maybe change the edit length to make that a little bit shorter, and you'll notice it now made a lot more cuts over here. So again, you just sort of move that lever back and forth and then listen to each of those cuts and see what you think.
You run, you run, you run, you run. Yo, I'm like a one-hit wonder.
That cut was fantastic.
Take a number, lightning string kids playground. This is the fun kids way down. You run, you roll, you run, you sound, you never sound.
So as you can see, it'll just save you a ton of time. And again, you know, it might not be perfect each time, especially if you have lyrics. Anyway, one of my favorite new features in the fall release of Creative Cloud on the video and audio tools side. This one I am going to use a lot. This new version of Premiere also gives you another choice when time remapping or working with speed. This is in addition to frame sampling and frame blending that you already know. The new option is called Optical Flow, and it's a technology that basically interpolates in-between frames for time remapping in order to produce better looking and smoother slow motion from conventional footage. So footage that's shot at 24, 30 frames a second where you just need slow motion to really look smooth. So it's nice to have another choice when frame sampling or frame blending doesn't work. And also, I should point out that Optical Flow doesn't work in all cases, but it works in a lot of cases where frame sampling and frame blending don't. Let's go ahead and take a look. Here I've got a glass of ice, and we're going to go ahead and pour some vodka over it just to give you an idea of what this might look like. And you can see it's shot at 29:9:7. So I'll move that into a new sequence. The first step I'm going to do is just figure out where I want this to start. So right there the water starts to pour, so I'll back this off just a little bit. And let me just see where that ends. Let the vodka settle down. That looks pretty good. And I'll just go ahead and now apply Optical Flow. A couple different ways to do this. The easiest one is just right mouse click, Time Interpolation, Optical Flow. And now from there, it's ready to go and has been applied. The next step might be to go ahead and change your speed duration. So let me just go ahead and change that to something slow, like maybe 30%. And you can also see here that Optical Flow is available as a pull down. Remember, I told you this choice is available in a couple different places. And at this point, I'll just go ahead and render this out. Okay, let's go ahead and preview this. I'm going to put this at full resolution. I'll hit the tilde key just to bring that up full screen. And as you can see, the motion looks really, really good. And in this particular example, Optical Flow is working great. Now, one of the things you're going to notice as the vodka starts to settle down, it really starts to look kind of interesting. And in some cases, almost a little jello-y type effect. So you have to kind of watch the speed and what happens when you play some of this back. You just have to watch your footage, look for artifacting, and things like that. Optical Flow does tend to move groups of pixels around as well. Think of it almost like a content-aware technology that's sort of looking at the pixels and what's going on over time. I set up another example, one that's a little bit more complex and one that you might consider using in your day-to-day work. The first thing you'll notice, this is an R3D file. It's a 6K Dragon file. And I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to go to Interpolation, Optical Flow, which I've already done. And I went ahead and I set up a time remap. Again, I think this is going to be a very popular way that people use this feature. And let's go ahead and play this back. I've already rendered it, and let's see what it looks like. And you'll notice it's really nice and smooth. Right there, it should ramp up, speed up a little bit. And that looks pretty good. What you want to look for in this is you want to look, when you go sort of scrub past this video, any sort of groups of pixels that might be shifting or moving. And this image actually looks really, really good. You'll notice up in this rainbow area, that's sort of where I'm keeping my eye and sort of making sure it maintains its shape as this Optical Flow gets applied. And it looks really, really fantastic. Here you'll notice under the export menu under time interpolation, we also have Optical Flow, which is really there for frame rate changes that you might do. You want to apply a different interpolation to that. We actually give you that choice right here on the export menu. A really, really nice choice. And again, I think this is another feature I'll be using quite regularly. Premiere Pro now supports the import of Dolby Vision files, extracting the PQ encoded HDR clips, as well as supporting OpenEXR clips by bringing these clips into Premiere Pro's new HDR working space and preserving the overbrights. These overbrights can be adjusted in the color panel using the new HDR mode, as well as being viewed in the scopes. Let's go ahead and check this out. Let's start by jumping over to the media browser where I've got a couple of samples. The first sample is a Dolby Vision sample, and I do have to say that Dolby is one of the companies that's setting the pace for HDR. So let's take a look and see what this footage looks like. One of the first things you'll notice is this area of the stove here. That's the area we're going to focus on. Obviously, it's way over bright, so let's jump over to the color workspace and take a look at the Lumetri scopes and sort of see what's going on here. And instantly, you can see that we're totally topping out well over 100%. So one of the new tools you have in the Lumetri scopes is an HDR setting. And here you'll notice we can see our scale goes up to 10K and we're well above 100%. So now we actually have an accurate representation for what's going on here. If you want to make some adjustments in HDR here, you go over to the Lumetri menu here and put that in high dynamic range, and you'll see you start to get some HDR controls. And if you go down to your color wheels, you'll also see you have additional controls here. You have an HDR specular and an HDR white as well. One of the things you might run into is you might run into a situation where you have HDR footage. How am I going to work with this on a SDR display, a standard dynamic range display? We provided you with a tool. If you just type in SDR, because that's the kind of monitor you're using, how do I get this in the right color space so I can actually work with it and put this out in a workflow that I have set up? So if you just put this effect on, you'll instantly see what happens here. And you can see what happens here when I turn the effect off and on. A really, really useful effect. One of the most common uses for this SDR conform effect is going to be to put this in, say, a Rec 709 color space. Obviously very common for broadcast, but also common in many other workflows. And we also give you some controls if you want to go in and adjust what the effect looks like. And obviously you've got masking tools and other things where you can go in and make different adjustments to get that effect that you're looking for. So it's just great to know that you can actually get HDR footage and be able to work with it in a standard workflow. Another format that you can work with in our initial support for HDR is going to be OpenEXR files. So I'm going to do a file import and show you how this works. I have some EXR footage that's here, and you'll notice it's basically frames at 116 megs a piece in a numbered sequence format. So if I just click on the first one, we pick up the fact that the folder has what appears to be a sequence of frames. So we'll go ahead and check this box and click import, and you'll see it comes in as one clip. I'm going to right mouse clip, new sequence from clip. Well, there's not a whole lot to work with here. I just wanted to show you what you can actually see when you bring up the scopes. Now you'll see that I'm already in 10K and I'm slightly peaking over 100%. And you'll see my specular controls and my HDR white controls also become available to me as well. So just another example of what you can expect to see with the new tool. One of the new features we're introducing with this version of Premiere Pro is more flexibility when working with panels. Just another way we're enhancing the user experience. You'll also find a lot of this to be quite useful when you're using new touch laptops or tablets, which I'll be showing you a little bit later. Let's take a look at this area here where I have lots of different tabbed panels and take a look at how some of this might work and how I can sort of mix it up to suit my workspace. What I'll do is I'll start with undocking one of these panels and moving it up here, and I'll grab another panel like the info panel and undock it as well and move it over here. I'll simply grab one of these panels and dock it with the other panel, so now I've got a panel group. From here I can change the way the information is displayed, whether or not it's tabbed or whether or not it's a stacked panel group. And you can see I now click on these as if they're a stack and be able to see either both of these open at the same time because I can either solo these or I can click on each one and they both remain open. You can see I can scroll up and down, or depending on how complex this gets, I might want to solo those out. And I'll start joining a couple of these together. And I'll put those back into a stacked panel group. And let's go ahead and grab maybe another one. And now you'll notice I've got 3 stacked panels, allowing me to solo any of these, or I can have them all open at one time. You'll also notice over here that I still have tabbed panels. So depending on what I want to work with and how I want to display the information, I have a lot more flexibility. And you'll find it really, really useful for certain panels and as you're mixing certain panels and different workflows together. Again, you'll find a lot of this stacked panel view to be very, very helpful with touch. Let's take a look at that. As you see here, I've got my workspace set up currently in editing, and I've got my controls here all set up for stacked panels, just as I showed you before. And you can see it actually works really well. Let's jump around and look at some of the other workspaces. I've got another one here called Assembly, and again, I've gone into here and set these up into stacked panels as well, so I can get in here and very easily move around. Most of the gestures behave exactly as you would expect. So pinch and zoom. A couple of other sort of heads-up controls that are pretty cool. If you tap on a clip, I can go ahead and play that clip, or I can step through it and set an out, just like so. Very, very easy to do. You can also easily scrub the playhead here, or you can scrub your program monitor up here with 2 fingers and place the playhead exactly where you think you might want it. Let's go ahead and place a clip in the program monitor. So from the bin, just select a clip, drag and drop, and you'll see you get a heads-up display with various indicators. Overlay, insert, insert after, insert exactly where your playhead is, replace, and overwrite. So very, very easy controls to adjust. From here we can go over to Effects and click on Motion, and I'll scrub that scale from side to side to get it just right. You may recall in our previous demo, we showed you the new color panel and how it's already designed with touch in mind. So again, going to your curves, hue saturation curve, being able to touch points, increase the range of the red, and so forth. You can also use your pen. Sometimes that's easier, and I can go in here and increase the range a little bit if I need to get a little bit more accurate. It's a great start, and we'll continue to be working on touch for the future. Here's a couple of new features that are small but important. So I'm going to go to my preferences under Titler and show you that we now have a new text engine for Indic text. This is languages from countries like India, so Hindi. We've now got a text engine that supports those characters. Again, a long-awaited feature. I think those users will be very happy. Another quick one is when you're dealing with footage that has lens distortion on it, such as this drone footage from a DJI copter, or you might be using a GoPro camera in a number of circumstances. Let me show you where we have new support for new cameras. Go to Effects, Presets, Lens Distortion, and you'll see under Lens Distortion you've got DJI for the DJI copters, and you've got GoPro. So one example would be if you've got the new awesome Hero 4 session camera, one of my favorites, all of its various modes, super view, medium, wide, and so forth, and all the various sizes. We've also got support for the new DJI copters, so you've got the Inspire, you've got the various Phantoms 2, Vision 2 Plus, and 3. And to apply these is really easy. All you have to do is look at your clip and know how you shot it. So if you can't remember, you can always go to Properties and look and see how you shot that. So this clip looks like it was shot at 1920 1080. So I'm going to go over to my effects controls where I've already applied this. And if I go under Lens Distortion and turn it off, you can instantly see what the difference is. So this isn't a huge complex effect, as we've shot with all these different devices on various charts and made all the appropriate alignments for you. It's just meant to be presets that are quick and easy to use when you need them to be. On some of those cameras, depending on how close you're shooting to your object, you'll find the distortion actually pretty good. But again, we went ahead and put those in there for you anyway. And lastly, let's take a look at a couple of new export options. I'm going to start by jumping over to my track mixer and flipping down my effects and jumping over to this menu, selecting Special Loudness Radar. This is actually not a new feature we've had. We've had this for a while. I want to show you how to use it on export. And for those of you that don't know what this does, it actually monitors the loudness range for legal output for broadcast. So let me go ahead and play this for you. So you can sort of see what's going on here. It's going to read the sequence and let you check for legal limits and see whether or not you have an issue that you need to correct. What happens if you don't want to monitor the sequence? Wouldn't it be great to do this during export? Well, that's what we've added. Let me show you how this works and where to find it. Just go to File, Export, Media, and under Effects, you'll notice as you work your way down the Effects menu, you can see where we have loudness normalization with all the standards right there. And it's the easiest way to set those parameters and the tolerance and peak levels where you need them and have it go ahead and write a loudness report, which in some cases may be required to submit with the media. Now, while I'm in this menu as well, you'll also see that we've added a video limiter as well with all the various standards. Under the Audio tab, you'll notice you can now easily set the number of channels you have for audio output. As well, under the Format tab, if I go to MXF OP1A, you'll see that we've got AVC Intra, XAVC, IMX, and now we have a new profile setting for IRT, which publishes the technical guidelines for Germany's public broadcasters. There's 6 MXF profiles for HD program material, and all of these have been specified to create compliant output. On the export format side, we've also added several new ones as well. One of the first ones you'll see is Avid's DNX HR. And under the preset, you'll see we've got all of the presets you would expect to see from Avid's lineup. So 2K, 4K, UHD, all the various frame rates. We've also added OpenEXR, and you've already seen what we can do with that with HDR, and you'll notice all the typical settings are there. And under the compression menu, you'll see all the available compression types. The last one I'll show you is the new support for H.265 or HEVC. And one of the things this will do for you is create amazingly high quality files at very low bandwidth. So let me show you the difference if I take an H.265 file and encode this skier that you see here as well as an H.264, and let's compare the difference. So let's take a look at the export options when we export for H.265 and H.264 so I can show you how I exported these out and we can compare. So I chose under the format H.265, went to the video tab, made sure it was at 4K, constant bit rate, and I set the megabits per second to 5. Highest quality, and also use maximum render quality. The main reason for that is this is a 6K Dragon sequence and I want to export it down to 4K, so you always hit maximum render quality whenever you do a scaling operation, either up or down. For the H.264, I did basically the same thing, so I set it to H.264, made sure I was at 4K, set this up for constant bit rate, and I set my target at 10 megabits per second, and then maximum render quality again because I'm scaling, and then I hit export. Let's take a look at the results. So here you'll see I've got on video track 2, I've renamed it H.265, and on video track 1, I've renamed it H.264. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to arrow this through until I find a really good spot that's in focus. About right there. Now let's set our zoom level up and look at some of the detail in his bathing suit. As you'll see, the H.265 layer is off and the H.264 layer is on. So again, you sort of see the quality here. Doesn't look too bad, but when I hit H.265 and I turn this eye on, you'll see it cleans it right up. A lot less artifacting. It is a little softer, But again, it's a lot cleaner image. The most interesting part of this, when I zoom back out and you get even a better idea as we start to look at different detail here, sort of go on some of the flesh tones here, and I'll turn that off and I'll turn it on. You actually are getting much more detail. If you look here around his neck area, when I turn the H.265 layer back on, I'm actually getting more detail. But the story is even better than that, because if I go to my properties here and I compare the file size of the H.265 and the file size of the H.264, that's where it really becomes apparent what the benefit is. So the H.264 file size is 26.84 and the file size of the H.265 is 13.16. Wow, what a difference. The last thing I'll show you is an option that we've added under the Export Publish settings, which now allows you to publish to Facebook. So this has been a very heavily requested feature, and you've got it in this latest update. So not only can you update to Creative Cloud, Facebook, of course you've been able to FTP for a while, get to Vimeo, as well as YouTube. And now you've got Facebook. Thanks for taking a look at what's new in Premiere Pro for the fall release 2015. If you like what you saw, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you can always be on top of what's new and the latest features.